Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, and good morning, Asgard. Welcome to episode 19 of the Good Morning Asgard podcast, and thank you for joining today. This is going to be the second episode that is available on all platforms, not exclusive to Odyssey anymore, because even though Odyssey, I do believe and have a lot of faith in what that platform will eventually become, at this point, it's not quite there. And I wanted to be able to make sure that this was open and available to everyone. And sorry that the event link was not created until about 15 minutes ago, and that didn't start exactly the time that I normally do, which is about a minute before, because today is baby Thor's first day of daycare. And it was a very busy morning for that very reason. And literally, as I was about to hit the live screen transition, I got a notification that he's made a friend. Because of the way that daycares are, some of them have it where they will update and tell you, okay, he's eaten a meal, he's taken a nap, and he's made a friend. And it was just very, very cute. And so I was like, oh my goodness. Anyway, so it's a fun and exciting day here in Asgard, everybody. But thank you all for joining, whether you're watching on D-Live, on YouTube, on Periscope, or on Odyssey, because I will continue to stream to Odyssey. But also a lot of people have been recently especially having issues with things loading. And I know that it's not just Odyssey, because I've been able to have some playback on the screen as well, and it hasn't had any issues for me. It just seems like Odyssey does not play well with certain internet connections and certain internet speeds and things like that. So I'm going to obviously continue to use Odyssey and to promote Odyssey, because I do think it's important to promote these alt tech platforms, especially ones that are going in a direction that I think is a very positive one, but it's still not quite there yet. And so obviously wanted to open this up to as many people as possible. But thank you all very much for being here today. As you can see from the title, obviously, you could talk a little bit about Richard Donner. So again, rest in peace, Richard Donner. And one of the reasons why was because yesterday, Tina, who is one of the mods, who's one of my Valkyries, she is the Emperor of the Universe. She called me out a little bit in the chat saying, why are we talking about Black Widow and not Richard Donner? And I had made some comments in the very beginning about how I'm not really the biggest fan of Richard Donner's work. And that was something where I think in retrospect and looking back on it, I don't know if that was something that came across as too harsh or didn't come across the right way. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to give honor and respect to the man who was Richard Donner, even though I'm not a fan of his first Superman movie, which is the only Superman film of his that I have seen. I'm still a huge fan of The Goonies. I mean, The Goonies was a film I grew up with. It was a very big part of my childhood. It was a very big part of the relationship between my siblings and myself. And to this very day, we could quote things back with each other and watch it together and be able to remember those amazing moments from our childhood as growing up together watching that movie. And so I definitely am a huge fan of that film. And also, I had no idea about the rich history that he had in television beforehand, because really, whenever I hear Richard Donner's name mentioned, almost every time it's mentioned in conjunction with Superman. And normally it's not a name that's mentioned with The Goonies or mentioned with other films or television, at least based on what I've experienced, because people typically, I think most people would admit this, the number one thing that people talk about whenever you actually use the name Richard Donner film typically is the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. That's normally the most common film and the most common thing that is brought up. And so typically I don't feel like people bring up the other films that he's worked on, like the Lethal Weapon franchise, like The Goonies, or like other films that I very much enjoy a lot more than the first Superman movie. And so, yeah, obviously paying some respects to Richard Donner today. And obviously, no matter how I feel about anyone's movies, still a human being, still had a family. And so obviously thoughts and prayers going towards him and towards his family, which, again, during a difficult time in this way. We got the K-Man and Robot Vulcan over on Odyssey, so thank y'all very much for joining on Odyssey today. We also got a few people over on YouTube as well. What is going on, YouTube fam? This has now been opened up for everyone over there. Tina B, Empress of the Universe, get that coffee going. Glad to see you here this morning. And she's happy to have those mod powers back on YouTube, which, again, something they don't quite have yet on Odyssey. Zakarot315. Good morning to you. Welcome to the chat. We got Biffer the Hobbit in the chat. What is going on, Biffer the Hobbit? Thank you very much for being here. Andrew Hoyle, what's going on, good sir? Thank you very much for being here. And for you, it's probably, what, afternoon? So good afternoon to you, good sir. Good afternoon to you, good sir. I don't know why I put on an Irish accent. It's just something that happens sometimes. All right, we got Mr. Roy. What's going on, good sir? And he has the right point of view, which is that the Tomorrow War is terrible. And by the way, if you are still holding on to the Tomorrow War being a good film, we've just last night, breaking news, everybody, last night, we got the official final word on the movie from Mahler. Mahler put out a tweet and said, anyone saying that you need to turn your brain off to enjoy this movie, what you really should be saying is you need to be put on life support to enjoy this movie. So I am very happy to know that Mahler is on my side on this. I figured he would be because, as I mentioned in my breakdown, there are objective flaws with the story. And Mahler has always very much been about trying to break things down from an objective standpoint, break down, and compare objective versus subjective. And that's why I've always appreciated the work that he's done. I don't typically watch his videos because they're hours and hours long, and I just don't have that much time to commit to watching everything. But I always do like hearing his thoughts and opinions and sound bites because he usually has some pretty good takes on things. And the fact that Mahler's on my side on this, everybody, just saying, if you're still holding on. Peter Han, what is going on? Glad to see you in the chat. Beaver the Hobbit here tagged and says, are you interested in Japanese anime films? So I've seen some anime movies. I'm a big fan of the Studio Ghibli films. I think that Miyazaki is an incredibly talented artist and storyteller. So I've been a big fan of those films for a long time. There's still a lot of films in that in those series of that studio that I need to watch still, including some Miyazaki films. But yeah, I typically like them. I wouldn't call myself a Japanese anime fan necessarily. Obviously, I grew up with things like Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball. And that's kind of like the standard, I think, American answer is, oh, yeah, you mean Dragon Ball and everything? And obviously there's so much more rich history in anime shows and movies. But yeah, I would say that yes and no. I'm not a mega fan, but I do enjoy some anime stories and some anime films, if that makes sense. Tina B agrees. Yeah, Odyssey has a little tweaking to do. And again, it's gone a long way, but it still has a lot to do. Andrew Hoyle says, a friend at daycare, you say? His name isn't Bertram, is it? No. I can say that is not the case. That is not the case at all. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, please smash that like button. It really does mean a lot. Let us see. What do we got going on? We got Biffer the Hobbit here, coming in to say, did you hear about the new Blade Runner animated series? It's called Blade Runner Black Lotus. It's coming out fourth quarter of 2021. I did not hear about that. Sounds fun. I obviously do love the Blade Runner universe. Fan of the original, fan of the eventual final cut. But also, I like pretty much all the iterations of it, because even though the original theatrical had that voiceover, I do think it adds some to the film, like for especially people who find parts of it confusing, as I myself did, especially the first time I watched it. I think being able to kind of reference moments of the voiceover to get more of a clear vision of what's going on is helpful. However, I do believe, obviously, the final cut is the best version, the best cut of the film. But one of the coolest things I have in my Blu-ray collection is it's the collector's edition of Blade Runner, where it has every single cut of the movie. Which I have not seen every single cut of the movie, because some of the changes in some versions are not nearly as vast as others. I've actually never watched the theatrical all the way through. I've only seen like bits and pieces just to get an idea of the voiceover. But yeah, that sounds interesting, though. It sounds interesting to hear about a animated series. I hope it's good. See, Andrew Hoyle, who's a member, says, I had the Goonies read-along book cassette tape. Ooh, wow. I had no idea they had ever even done that. I mean, that is the time period that they would have done that. But yeah, for sure. Remember, if you have a comment or question on any platform, put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment. @Odin. It lets me know you're trying to get my attention and that you want me to read your comment, and I will do so. And that is true on Odyssey as well. Obviously, if you are a member on YouTube, since your name color is a little bit different, it means that I will read that comment out no matter what. All right, Tina B. Tanya says, thank you for saying that about Donner. I don't like all of his movies, but he had a great history overall. I saw his Twilight Zone episodes and didn't realize it until the closing credits. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to know and to dig into his television credits. Let me see if I can. So, by the way, I use a Rodecaster Pro for my audio and stuff, and they just put out a new firmware update, and it includes some stuff that actually seems like it'd be pretty cool. And so part of it is that I can apparently now do scene transitions from the sound pads. So let me see if this works. I was playing with it before. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. Obviously, that is the Odyssey fam. Robot Falcon says, Ford's delivery in that one voiceover is just awful. Well, I mean, it's clear that they kind of rushed it and put it together at the last minute. So, yeah, I would definitely agree there. But, yeah, just going into a little bit of the history of Richard Donner, since obviously that is a major point of today, we look to, first off, his filmography. So he's known, again, I think mostly for Superman 1 and 2, specifically the director cut, right? The Donner cut of Superman 2, which everyone says is infinitely better than the original cut. I have not seen it, and it comes down to the fact that I am just not a fan of that first Superman. I think that the portrayal of Superman, of Clark Kent, is very good, and there are some really good moments in the movie, but the two biggest issues that I have with it was the way in which Lex Luthor is actually portrayed, not in the acting or the performance, but more so in just the character, him figuring out things without any logical reason or any logical way for him to be able to figure out things. I mean, you can talk about how in the comics he is a super genius, but you still, even as a genius, have to be able to make connections. And when he was trying to explain how he was able to figure out everything with kryptonite and all that, it just didn't make sense. It was very messy. And then, of course, the very end of the movie with the time travel part, it just was not good. And anyone who saw my live reaction to that, you know exactly my thoughts on it, as I was literally breaking down as I was watching it, saying, wait a minute, this doesn't work. This doesn't make sense. Wait, what about this? What about that? And it kind of soured me on ever wanting to watch Superman 2. I mentioned last night, the toy, I'm about halfway through, and it's okay. It's fine. But obviously, The Goonies, classic, right? The Goonies, completely fantastic movie. Lady Hawk is solid, but at the same time, it is a bit of an odd story as well. But I did enjoy it for what it was. Like, for me, it was kind of like a B-level film. Lethal Weapon, big fan of the first three. I've only seen the first three in the film. We're doing a movie watch series about last summer or 2 summers ago at this point, and I want to say we got up to Lethal Weapon 3, so I have not seen Lethal Weapon 4, but I enjoyed those films. Those were a lot of fun, so shout out to you for that, Richard Donner. Scrooge is a movie where I just didn't find it funny. I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't find that movie funny at all, and I know a lot of people find that as kind of a quintessential Christmas movie, Christmas comedy, and it's got all of the pieces that it would need. I just, for me, Bill Murray playing that character, there just wasn't anything likable about the character, and so it made it very hard for me, because even in a story where you're portraying an evil character or a villain who obviously turns to a heart of gold at the end, I don't know, it just came across as too abrasive for my taste. Just too abrasive for my taste. And then I had mentioned this last night as well, that he did the 2003 film Timeline, which I have a very special place in my heart for. Speaking of time travel movies, I actually do like Timeline because it actually does, I think, portray certain rules of time travel, and I think it actually respects those rules. And obviously, it's a very simplified version, but I think it works for what it is. It's a very cheesy film. Paul Walker's in it, and Paul Walker is a lot of things. He was never really a very good actor, but he's in it as well. And yeah, Gerard Butler's kind of breakout movie, I guess you could say, one of the first big films that he really did in 2003. So it always had a special place in my heart as well. And then 16 Blocks he did with Bruce Willis, and that one was also one of those it was okay. It was kind of forgettable, and it's a movie where I can remember bits and pieces of it, but because it was a bit forgettable, I just kind of, overall gave up on it. Also, interestingly enough, he was the executive producer of Free Willy, the original Free Willy, also X-Men and X-Men Origins Wolverine. So you can kind of see that Richard Donner, as far as his films are concerned, I think definitely had kind of a hit-miss mentality, because then he also went on to fund Free Willy 2 and 3, which obviously you know how I feel about sequels overall. And obviously this is the area that I was not as well versed on, which is, look at this. Massive collection of TV episodes. Because even though it may not seem like a long list of shows, you look at those episode counts and you realize, okay, he did a lot of work on television. And also, he did a lot of work very, very late. I mean, again, in the 1950s and 60s, which is kind of amazing when you think about it in that capacity and in that way. So some of the most notable ones for me, the ones that, at least by name, I can recognize, even though I may not have necessarily seen them. So let's see, he did 6 episodes of The Twilight Zone. That's fun. I wonder what episodes he did. I wonder if we can figure that out. Is there a way for me to figure out that? Let's see. It was from 63 to 64. So I can, at the very least, break this down by season. Let's see here. 63, 63, 64. Hold on, what does this say about this show? All right, let's open up these two. All right, let's see what episodes he did. Let's see, the directed by... Something tells me, this was the weird season. This was the season where they decided to make the episodes longer, and so there weren't as... Or, no. Scratch that, reverse it. All right, let's go ahead and just see which ones he did. Okay, so he did Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. So that's the one that Tina and others have mentioned. So obviously that is very well known. So yeah, that's a fantastic episode. That is really good. So that is, again, something that's definitely worth commending as such. Let's see, he did From Agnes with Love. A computer programmer receives advice on his love life from a computer that falls in love with him. I don't think I've seen that episode, though it definitely sounds a little bit familiar. Sounds and Silences. A man has an obsession with loud noises, which causes his wife to leave him. Then all the sounds in his life go haywire. I don't think I've seen that one. Jeopardy Room. A political defector is forced into a game of cat and mouse with a rather artistic and sadistic hitman. Okay, I have not seen that one. The Brain Center at Whipple's. Factory owner decides to replace his human employees with machines. Not seen that one. Come Wander With Me. A professional rockabilly singer looks for an authentic song in the mountains where he gets in trouble with locals. So actually, to be fair, I've only ever seen one episode of his, and it was Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, and I actually really do like that episode. So yeah, shout out and kudos to you, good sir. He did 4 episodes from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He did 3 episodes of Gilligan's Island and Perry Mason, 2 episodes of Get Smart. Let's see, any other shows that I at least know of, or I've heard of Kojak. So he did 3 episodes of Kojak. Interesting. He did 3 episodes of Tales from the Crypt. Never watched the show, but I remember always seeing clips from the show as such. And then a couple other Crypt Keeper things. So yeah, I, again, no idea how many television credits he had prior to kind of getting involved in movies. Obviously, he was involved with movies around the same time he was involved in television too. But yeah, interesting that he is mostly known. As I said, like, I think that a lot of people who know of him and are fans of him know his filmography and know all the films and shows that he's connected to. But for someone like me who, again, wouldn't call myself a mega fan, which is why I didn't really want to be like, oh yeah, rest in peace, Richard Donner, you were so great, because that would just not be true. That would not be authentic of my own experience. I've only ever seen his name very tightly associated with Superman 2, with the Richard Donner cut. And it's really good, I think, and very exciting for me to know that he has done so many other things, and many of those things are things that I really enjoy. Again, The Goonies, very special place in my childhood. The Lethal Weapon films are a lot of fun. Maybe Alex McCarthy would know. I think we got until and through Lethal Weapon 3. I don't know if I ever got to 4. But yeah, shout out to you, good sir, and rest in peace, Richard Donner. So hopefully for everyone that works. Let me see if I can switch back. That should have switched me back. Hopefully it did. Look at that. Look at me. I'm all fancy. I'm all fancy now. Let's see what's going on over on Odyssey first. Megazord Jeremy in the chat says, I only ever saw his Superman movies. The first 2 were okay, but the other 2 were weird. Superman Returns sucked. Well, based on what I saw, he only did the first 2. And the second one, his version was not actually released. So it is what it is there. What did Richard Donner think of Man of Steel? I don't know if he ever gave his thoughts or opinions on it. Robot Vulcan says, his greatest credit is directing Cyndi Lauper's Good Enough music video. Wait a minute! Robot Vulcan, yeah. I guess that is also something that I didn't look into as well. I wonder if he did any other music videos. But oh man, that song, so iconic for the Goonies, and also, yeah, fun music video as well. Interesting. Okay. And again, this is the reason why I like doing these streams, because I learn so much more, especially from y'all, who might be much bigger fans of his than I could ever claim to be. So that's awesome, Robot Vulcan. Thank you for letting me know that. All right, let's head back over to YouTube for a little bit. Let us see. Oh, Abu Nas, dude, what's going on, man? Abu Nas coming in with the $5 super chat. Thank you very much, dude. He says, it's been a while since I've shown my bro some love. About to start my work day. Caught the notification you were live. Hope you're doing well. Miss you, bro. Dude, miss you as well, man. I still remember the most iconic stream I've ever done with Abu Nas. It was me, Abu Nas, and John Talks. And was Justin Proper with us too? I feel like there was someone else with us too. But it was the stream where we figured out that not only was Star Wars looking like it was not going to be very good, but also that one film, this was when The Last Jedi, I believe, was about to come out, but one film, no. It was when Rise of Skywalker was about to come out. It was like a year before Rise of Skywalker was going to come out. And so we were obviously talking about how the universe had been destroyed by The Last Jedi and had been talking about what we thought was going to happen with The Rise of Skywalker. And we were looking at, or I pulled up the release schedule and I was like, guys, Cats. There's a movie that's going to go up against Rise of Skywalker, and it was Cats. And that's what started the whole Cats joke. Someone sent me a Cats shirt. I actually got to go watch Cats opening night with a Cats shirt on, while everyone else was probably trying to go see Rise of Skywalker. Sith Kryptonian, Abu Nas, dude, yes, Sith Kryptonian. Oh, man. Sith Kryptonian, I know that he's kind of been back and forth on social media and YouTube. I think he nuked his channel and everything, but what a good dude, man. Miss me some script. That was a great day. That was so much fun. Rosie G12, what's going on? Thank you for being here. Abu Nas, thank you very much, man, for that love. Yeah, this is going to be one of the first days of my summer, actually, that I actually have summer, because it's the first day where baby Thor is actually at daycare. It's going to be interesting. All right, Soul Extraction, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. Rosie G12 says, can't wait to watch Odin's review of When Harry Met Sally. We'll watch later today. Yeah, first time ever seeing it. And even though in general, I guess spoiler warning for my review of the film, I generally like the movie, but I do have some issues with the story and how it relates to society. It's more of a deep dive into it, looking way too much into the film probably, but I do think it's still important to talk about nonetheless. But overall, I thought it was a solid film. Let's see. Andrew Hoyle, who's a member, says, I've not seen Blade Runner for a long time. What's the difference in the various cuts? Well, the biggest cut between the theatrical, which is the one that was originally put out there, and the final cut, which was not put out until much later, is that there's no voiceover, and also there's different scenes that have been added in that add more context to the story, give a little bit more indication as to, is he a replicant, is he not a replicant, and, stuff like that. And just other things that got cut from the original that really are great. I don't have the entire list memorized, but those are kind of like the big ones that are different. As far as the other editions of the movie, there's like an international version, which I think is a little more risque or has more violence, or there's like very minor differences between the other cuts. The biggest difference though is the theatrical has that voiceover for the entirety of the movie, because when the studio watched it, they were like, this movie is too confusing for us. Audiences are stupid. They'll never understand it. And then they brought Harrison Ford to come in and do voiceover for most of the movie, and it also ended with a happy ending as well, which yeah, some people like, some people don't. I'm kind of mixed on it personally. I've not watched the entire movie with the happy ending attached to it with the voiceover yet. So I don't know how to feel about it. JKD Buck 76, what's going on? He's like, more like crap tonight. JKD Buck then says, Lady Hawk, aka Dude Wolf. That is also a very accurate statement. Let's see. Tina V says, YouTuber Brandon Tenrold would agree with you on the end of Superman 78, only because Turkish Superman can look back and see past events. Yes, there's a Turkish Superman long story. Oh, Lord. Well, that sounds interesting, to say the least. Let's see. Tina B then says, that was the first movie I saw with Paul Walker and Gerard Butler. That was Butler's breakout movie, and also the only reason I watched Fast and Furious 1, Walker was in it. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah. Interesting that the first Paul Walker film you watched was Timeline. And yeah, if you were to go watch Timeline now, it's not a good movie. Let me just put it out there. Timeline's not a good movie objectively, but I do enjoy it. Again, that's where that I think is another example of a subjective versus objective. It's an objectively flawed movie, but it's subjectively enjoyable for me. And yeah, a lot of it I think is because you have this very campy performance put out by Paul Walker. Gerard Butler is much better than the movies he chooses, and I think it's very much on display in that movie. And then also I remember reading the book, and I remember the book just being very good and very interesting, and the concept of time travel that it's presented in that movie. And also I liked how there were consequences, not just in the timeline itself in that movie, but also physically on the person, like being sent back in time too much, like going back and forth too much. Essentially, like you rip the cells apart and put them back together so many times that there's these errors and there's these issues that can come up and can have this huge negative impact and lead to early death. And like all that stuff I thought was very interesting, and that's why I liked it as much as I did. All right, JKD-Buck76, who is a member, says, we need to have a party to remember him, a Donner party, if you will. What's on the menu? Well, I don't know about that necessarily. I don't know if I'm not the best suited person to host that party. I would not feel worthy of that. Tina B says, oh my gosh, those TV shows, Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen, Wagon Trail, The Rifleman, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Perry Mason, The Fugitive. That is a great list of shows. Yeah, even Gilligan. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Let's see. Andrew Hoyle, who's a member, says, that just reminded me, I saw your post about Hugh Jackman teasing coming back as Wolverine. Oh, I did not hear about that, but I'm not surprised at all. Whenever these actors come out and say, I'm retiring from this, I'm retiring from that, I never believe it. I never buy into that. Like that, Robert Downey Jr. Oh yeah, this is my last time. I'm not doing this character anymore. There is going to be a price that Disney will offer where he'll be like, okay. It happens all the time. There are very few actors that actually have any sense of, not dignity, but any sense of value to the word that they say. There's very few actors. Like, out of all the actors who have made promises recently, the one that I would be most likely to believe more than anyone else would be someone like, and of course, as always, I blank out on the names, but an actor who recently retired. I do honestly believe that he is going to stay retired. And obviously I know the films that he's done, There Will Be Blood. And then of course, the last film he did was The Phantom Thread. And, oh my goodness gracious, I hate when my brain does that to me. And I'm sure someone's going to put that in the chat. I think Tina B even mentioned him because last time she had seen The Phantom Thread as Daniel Day-Lewis. That's the one. I just remembered it. All right. Daniel Day-Lewis. So out of all the people who've made those types of promises, Daniel Day-Lewis is, I think, the one that would most likely actually hold to that word. All these other ones, like Robert Downey Jr., I don't believe it. Hugh Jackman, I don't believe it. Even though I think Logan is a great send-off to his portrayal of that character, I honestly still think if you're going to have an actor portray a character for so long, and that actor's then going to try and do other things, and those other things are not as successful, that is going to have a major impact. Right? That's going to have a major impact on everything. All right, let's head over to Odyssey for a second to catch up with some of the things over there. Let us see. Megazord Jeremy says, I wonder what Batman would have been like in a Richard Donner movie if he had done a BVS type movie. That is interesting. Yeah, I don't know exactly what kind it would be. Personally, I don't know if I would want to see his portrayal, to be honest. Because of the fact I wasn't a big fan of some of the choices creatively that he did. Now, a lot of people tell me Superman 2 is better, so maybe in honor of the memory of Richard Donner, I'll actually give Superman 2 a try. But yeah, it would be interesting to see because it would probably be very different as such. Megazord Jeremy over on Odyssey has some words for Abu Nas. He says, why is Abu Nas called the president? If I was him, I would not settle just for that title. I would prefer being called Grand Emperor, Master Samurai, Viking Lord, T-Rex, Keanu Reeves, Stan Batman, Prime Minister, Chancellor, President Abu Nas. Well, just like your name in the past has been, that's a bit too long. Robot Vulcan, I've heard the unicorn scene that was added in Blade Runner was leftover footage from Legend. Ooh, interesting. I did not know that. Did not realize that. GMonkey76, good morning to you on Odyssey. Light up that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, everybody. Megazord Jeremy then says, I would like to see a sequel to Timeline where I and the rest of the Phantom Menace go back. Okay. All right, Megazord Jeremy, if you could just like calm down on the jokes in the chat, I would very much appreciate it. I appreciate the comments that you had mentioned before, but calm down on the jokes. Just it'd be nice. Be nice. All right, let's head back over to the YouTube chat. Thank you all again for being here. Smash that like button, please. Let me just double check because I got some notifications about baby boy. Aw, he had a changed diaper, and he has started his nap. So hopefully that nap goes well. That is the one thing we are most concerned about with baby Thor, is that he's very used to being in a very dark room with a sound machine on, and now he's going to be in a room with other kids who may have different, styles and everything. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully it goes well. Andrew Hoyle, there's something on the wing. There's something on the wing. My favorite episode, I think, that features him is probably I forget the name of the episode, but the one where it's like the fortune teller. I think his performance in that episode is a lot better. Not to say that it's a bad performance in the 20,000 Feet episode. It's just obviously it's like the most iconic scene that people love to make fun of and love to emulate. There's something on the wing. Even though he doesn't say that. If you actually watch it, it's amazing how that has become the standard way that people remember that scene. But then when you actually look at it, it's not even anywhere close to being that hammy. It's kind of interesting. Oh man. Andrew Hoyle coming in. This is Andrew Hoyle, YouTube, not me. By the way, there's this notification in the YouTube Studio app, or in the YouTube Studio page, where it's someone who interviewed the president or CEO of YouTube. And one of the things is, do you keep up with the controversy? And she's like, yes. And that's like in the thumbnail for it. I'm like, oh, shut up. You don't care about anyone on this platform. Except silencing them, of course. Again, Abu Nas, thank you very much for that super chat, dude. I really do appreciate that. You are the man. Gary Banjo Sandwich says, greetings from England. Wish us well in the soccer today. We need Odin's blessing. Well, hopefully you all do well, and hopefully the team does well. Again, God bless your country. God bless your team. Hopefully everyone is safe as well. Who are they playing today? I have not been following the Euro Cup as much as I would like. Let us see. Chubman Rising, what is going on? Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Laura Story, so early where you are out in Cali. Thank you for being here with the coffee and the yawns. I appreciate it. Yes, Laura, I'm the same way. I miss Sith Kryptonian too. He had a lot going for the channel. I like the direction of the channel. Obviously, I understand some of the reasons why he decided to take a break and decided to leave and then come back. But I wish he had kept the channel up, because I think that there were a lot of really great videos on that channel, and I think there were a lot of really great interviews and live streams and all that stuff. Eric K, what's going on, good sir? Happy summertime. Oh, and yeah, seriously, it took me until, almost, a week away from halfway through July, but hey, I finally get a little bit of summer. And now, of course, it's like, okay, well, now I need to do probably a little bit of vacuuming, and I need to do some housework to clean up while baby Thor is out. And I still need to do some reading, because I've been wanting to do reading for a long. There's so many things. I had this whole schedule planned out, and obviously baby Thor takes preference, but it is going to be kind of nice to be able to know that I don't have to worry about, watching the monitor constantly and making sure everything. I should be a lot more productive. Hopefully. Hopefully. Master of the Mash, welcome. Welcome. Abunas says, I was about to ask you about that too. Parenthood is such a blessing. I'm going to see my daughters and grandson this weekend, so can't wait. Nice, Abunas. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a new day. Again, it's the first day of, we're calling it school, right? Even though it's daycare, because they actually do have like not an academic program, because he's only about 8 months, but still, like, there's developmental stuff that they're going to work on. So we're really excited to see the kind of growth that he's going to go through. Tina says, never liked Harry Met Sally. I ranted about it on Discord. Have never liked Meg Ryan, even when she was As the World Turns. My mom and I joked, no wonder Goose got himself killed. Ooh, oof. Shots fired by Tina. I thought she was fine in the movie. And as I said, I do like the movie as far as I think that there's a lot of good stuff in there. I think there's a lot of funny stuff in there too. There's obviously a great, I think, chemistry and dynamic between her and Billy Crystal. And Billy Crystal, of course, is fantastic. And his character is great. And one thing I mentioned in my review is I think it's really interesting how they make mention of the fact that the script, even though it is said to have been written by someone, it actually does mention the fact that there are a lot of lines that were added by Billy Crystal. He made the character more funny. And I don't think that would have worked with anyone other than Rob Reiner. Despite the fact that Rob Reiner is a terrible political person, like his political takes are just so obnoxious, he is a very talented filmmaker. I mean, no matter what he says today, it's not going to change the fact that I love The Princess Bride. No matter what he says today, it's not going to change the fact that I do love the character he plays in All in the Family. And he's obviously done a lot of other films too. And I think that it is something that is worth noting, that he's willing to work with people like Billy Crystal, where even in Princess Bride, there's a lot of great lines in that movie that were ad-libbed, that were added on. And he let comedians especially work, right? He let them do what they did and did very well. All right. Man Squatch. What's going on, Man Squatch? Are you by chance Goblin Squatch with a new name? Please let me know. Please let me know. I want to make sure that I'm able to give proper kudos and stuff. Lawliest River. What's going on? Glad to see you here. Let us see. Ba-da-ba-ba-dum-bum. JM Cruz, thank you for tagging, says, remember when they said that Crystal Skull should have been the last Indiana Jones movie? It's always about the money. Regardless if the material will be bad, they'll squeeze the hell out of it for the IP. Oh yeah, they'll squeeze the hell out of the IP, and they will totally drain any love or fond memories of that IP. I mean, just look at Star Wars. Star Wars is not in the same position that it was when The Force Awakens came out. There's a reason why The Force Awakens made over $2 billion. And it's not because the movie was great. It's because it was Star Wars and it was back. And it had so much potential. You had the original 3. Now, obviously, by the end of the film, you only had 2 left. But it was still something that got a lot of people excited. And I think had the story in the next 2 films actually been good and not just destroyed canon and been, Rian Johnson making a film for himself. He himself has even admitted that fact, that they still could have, I think, made a good story even without Han Solo, even without Harrison Ford's Han Solo, but they clearly didn't care about telling a good story. And so again, the reason why that film did so well and why a lot of people, even Phantom Menace types, were still kind of positive or at least mixed on The Force Awakens was because it was like, okay, this is not the best movie. It's a rehash in certain ways, a lot of the themes of A New Hope. And okay, but hey, there's some potential. There's some stuff that could be good. And obviously that didn't happen. That didn't pan out. And there were some people that were ahead of the game on that, right? There were people that were able to see the writing on the wall earlier than other people. And I think that obviously is something that anyone who was able to do that is worth commending them for it. But the film did well because Star Wars was popular. You look by the end of the run of that series, and it was cracking little over $1 billion, which means it lost about half of its audience, half of its revenue. And remember that if you adjust for inflation, that first number gets a lot higher in comparison. So I think it's definitely something that it's a really sad state. It's a really sad state, but no, you're totally right, JM Cruz. I think that you will find that anyone who says the only person as far as movie franchises are concerned that has kept his word is actually Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis has gone on record to say, we will not ever have a reboot or redoing of Back to the Future. But here's the thing. As soon as he dies, I think you're going to have a ton of people, unless he's able to put that in an estate or in a will and give control to someone he trusts. If that IP gets available for others to be able to use, get ready for some of that, because that's going to happen. And it's going to be disgusting. Look at just what's happening right now with Lord of the Rings. You know, that IP was protected by Christopher Tolkien for years and years. Ever since his death, now you started to see this shift away. Amazon's involved. You have this woke craziness going on with the Tolkien Society. And it's going to lead to one of the biggest abominations probably in the history of television, in the history of Lord of the Rings. So therefore, by proxy, in the history of art itself, by taking the work of someone and turning it into something that it never was intended to be. Never intended to be. But it's all about making that money. It's all about squeezing out, as you said, every bit of that IP. Every bit of that IP. Abunas responding to Megazord Jeremy saying, that would be awesome, but I wouldn't be able... Yeah, I'm right there. Rookie Critic, what's going on? By the way, Rookie Critic, thank you very much for the $2 super chat. He says, what's up, grandfather? Allfather. Odin. Rookie Critic, what's going on, dude? Welcome back. It's been a while since I've seen you in the chat, man. Thank you for being here. Tina B says, the fortune-telling machine in the coffee shop. That's a great episode. And Shatner was a classically trained actor. He just gets a lot of mocking these days. Yeah, it's just interesting how people typically would think about the portrayal of that scene in the Nightmare 20,000 Feet, and it's always hammed up. It's interesting how that works. Phil Arconis, welcome. They're facing Denmark today. Okay. Yeah, I don't guess I have a dog in that fight, so yeah, go England. Now, if it was Germany, I'd have to root for my German roots. I actually do, I think, technically have English roots. But anyway, let us see. Brightburn 1985, what is going on? Says, I think Richard Donner was a lot like the director of Casablanca, Michael Curtis, because both of them could direct anything. If you look at Richard Donner and make Charles Kurtz's body of... and what? A chart? And make chart? I don't understand what I was supposed to say. But no, I obviously disagree to a point because I don't know the full, actually. I don't know the full body of work of the director of Casablanca, to be honest. But I do know the full body of work, film-wise, of Richard Donner. And as I've said, I don't like at least one of his movies. And I think that he was kind of hit and miss. I think he was a kind of hit and miss. All right, let's head back over to Odyssey, see what's going on over there for a second. Let us see. Megazord Jeremy says that there was a glitch on Odyssey where it was looped with me saying I miss Sith Kryptonian. Is that true? Interesting. Tube you says midday Odyssey. Megazord Jeremy then says, did you ever see the Steven Seagal version of When Harry Met Sally? It was a mad TV sketch. No, I never did. And then he says, speaking of Robert Zemeckis, have you seen his CGI Beowulf movie? It was not that good, but the CGI was interesting effort. Can you recommend a good Beowulf movie? I don't know of any good Beowulf movies. It's never been a story that I've ever been overly fond of. I'm not saying that it's a bad story. I'm just saying it's never really been something that I've gone out of my way to look for. But I've not seen that because the CGI looked awful. Obviously, it was a very interesting effort. It was very much a unique style that had not really been done before, to my knowledge, at least the way he did it and portrayed it. But it was because of the CGI I never watched it. Even though Sean Bean, I believe, is in that movie. Yeah, I was not a fan of the style that he had. Was not a fan of the style. Jedi Knight, what's going on? Hail to you. Thank you for being here. JKD Buck 76. Please say Gordon's alive. There you go. Gordon's alive. Dive. Brian, bless it, everybody. Oh, man. All right, Ellie Yap. What is going on? Turning in for the night. It's nighttime where you are? Good Lord. Where are you? You must be like in Australia or something, man. Let's see. Tina B says, Meg has never been fine. The stories I could tell sounds like a chosen rant. Probably. But here's the thing, though, is that I look at her not knowing anything of her background or what she's tried. I think that her acting is fine. I think looking at it from not having that knowledge, I'm able to look at it from a non-tainted version or a non-tainted image. And I think that that's the reason why I can look at the performance. It's similar to how a lot of people will typically say, Brie Larson's terrible. She's never done anything good. But even I'm like, no, before she went really crazy woke and before she really started to suffer in her performance ability, there were movies that she did that she was very much good in. And I think, and I mentioned this in a previous stream, where it's not because she is good, it's because she is very much impacted based on the director that she's given. And it's clear that when she's given more free reign or when she's directing herself, she is terrible. She is not a good intuitive actor. But if you look to films like Short Term 12, she does a very good job in that film. If you look to a film like Room, she gives a good performance in that movie as well. And I think it all really comes down to the director basically trying to pull, maybe even pull teeth, a good performance out of her for that very reason. But I'm at least able to look at her performances in that way and trying to separate myself from the art and the artist, which I know is difficult sometimes for us to do. But yeah, I don't think Meg Ryan's as bad as you think that she is. I think it's more so, it seems at least that it's probably more so things that you know about her than the actual performer. Rosie12 says, agree 100% on Rob Reiner. Bad politics, but talented director and actor does not make him unique in Hollywood. No, it doesn't. I mean, there's tons of people in Hollywood who are absolutely terrible as far as their politics go, but are incredibly talented. No doubt. JKD76, what's going on? Says, Indiana Jones and the shameless woketivist cash grab. Probably. Is Asgard flat? No. No. It's a bit rocky. There's levels, there's layers. Just another red shirt. Hail to you. Glad to see you here. Slicer Neon's in the chat. What is going on? Following up on last night, the late Richard Donner could also be called Richard Thunder. Yeah, based on we went into the whole, I don't know why it went in that direction, but yeah, we went into the entire history of the name, and it was interesting. But yes, that would be correct based on last night's breakdown of names. Rosie12 says, with Tolkien and Amazon, it's about money, but also destroying Tolkien's wrongthink as perceived by the left. Yeah, and it's interesting because you have this understanding that the left has attacked him for the portrayal of orcs, right? And then you also have them now saying, oh, but in actuality, he was before his time. It's just such a ridiculous thing that they are doing. Trent Johnson, thank you for the $5 donation via Streamlabs. Dude, Trent Johnson, thank you very much for that donation. I appreciate it. He says, how you feel about rooting for Germany is how I feel about rooting for Italy. My great-grandfather on my mom's side immigrated from Italy to Sao Paulo with the rise of fascism before World War II, then immigrated to New York in 1918. Well, that's awesome. Trent Johnson, and thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, it's interesting because I have German ancestry, and it's, I think, something that I've always been proud of and something that I've always cared about. Obviously, I always consider myself more so an Irishman than anything else. And if you look at my breakdown on, everyone at one point was doing the Ancestry.com, 23andMe. I think now that we know a little bit more, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have, knowing that apparently, I don't know if it's conspiracy or if it's been proven yet that information is being collected from federal agencies and stuff like that from these groups. I don't know, or they're selling the information. I don't know. But if that is true, then obviously that would be something in hindsight where I probably wouldn't. But it is nice just to know the actual breakdown as such, because it did actually help us figure out that there were certain strands going into our family history that we weren't sure about that were actually confirmed in looking at the DNA breakdown as such. So yeah, obviously Ireland would be my go-to, but Ireland's soccer team has never really been... Sorry, Ireland's football team, has never really been the best, or at least lately it hasn't really been the best. And so Germany has been, and so it's been easier to kind of fall into that. But also having the heritage connection too. But Trent Johnson, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. It's absolutely also, going back to what Rosie G12 was saying, it's totally about the money. It's really sad. Marby Dog, what is going on? What's going on? David Stout, what's going on? Says, what is your version of wokeness? What do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that. Brightburn985, I'm sorry about that. I was eating pizza while I wrote that. I'm John Early. I changed my channel name to Brightburn. Oh, wow. Okay. No problem at all, Brightburn. It happens. But yeah, thank you for being here. Let's see, Tina B says, I think Brightburn was saying Michael, but it came out as Make Charl, and Curtis's other works include Robin Hood and Errol Flynn, Yankee Doodle Dandy with Cagney. Okay, yeah, so Yankee Doodle Dandy, I don't know why I said it that way. Yankee Doodle Dandy is on my list of films to watch. Thanks to Rosie G12 for sending that out to me. And obviously Robin Hood with Errol Flynn, I very much was a fan of. So yeah, I wouldn't compare them. It doesn't seem like him and Richard Donner are on the same level. Just based on those films mentioned, at least. All right. Looking for people tagging or new people in the chats. Let's see. Rusty Shackelford, what's going on? Tina B tagged and says, well, never thought I'd rant about Meg Ryan after all these years. She's forgotten and washed up, and the last time I saw her, she needs to stay away from plastic surgery. Yikes. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's something we can say today, but again, looking back at the films that she was in, I thought it was fine. So, let's see. Wiggy, what's going on? Owned by the LDS Church. Really? Is that true? David Stout says, what do you mean when you say woke? What is it? So how do I define wokeness? I define wokeness typically as when a story that's been pre-established has been changed or is wanting to be changed into something that it is not. So for instance, having a character like Superman, who is a white male, being portrayed in a different way, being race swapped, being gender swapped, but still being called the same name. That's one concept of wokeness. The other is when identity politics is thrown into storytelling. And you usually see that in the way that I just presented with, race swap, gender swap, that kind of thing. But you can sometimes see that even in more original stories, where you have modern day politics infiltrating stories. Great example of that would be a film by Spike Lee that came out in the last few years, BlacKkKlansman. The movie actually was very good and very solid. And then at the very end, he decided to clip in modern day or footage from modern day and also other time periods than the film that he made took place in. And it included Trump speeches and rallies. And so at that point, then, you look at those sequences he's putting in. It's the last 5 minutes. He literally destroyed his movie in the last 5 minutes. And it was because now you go back to and think about the entire movie, and you realize all of it was to build up to this. Basically, he made the movie to make a point about Trump, and it was not to make just a really good movie. And so that is also another way in which wokeness is brought in. It's identity politics being put into stories, politics in general, modern day politics being put into storytelling, because anything that basically is put into a story that really does nothing except cause us to fall away from our escapism, brings us back into the real world, does not provide that escape, would fall typically into that category. So that's how I define it. Again, there's different ways that we can define it, and there's other people that have different definitions for it, but that is how I personally would be defining it as such. All right, let me head over to Odyssey. Let's see. Megazord Jeremy says, a Zack Snyder Beowulf Flash Gordon movie. How about no? I don't want to see any of it. Don't want to see any of it. The Whitfeld DM, who I think is just a Odyssey channel that's meant to provide links for people and to provide help for people, but it always gives like the very smallest amount of donation, and so it's always like, okay, I guess it's a hyper chat still. But anyway, thank you for that information. Robot Vulcan Tagnus says Queen's Flash Gordon soundtrack is one of the best ever. If the battle theme doesn't get you pumped, you must be dead. Oh no, I agree. Flash Gordon, as cheesy as it is, has one of the best soundtracks. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. All right. And yeah, Megazord Jeremy, I did know about Russell Crowe being angry at South Park. But it was just a bit of an odd statement, so that's why I decided to skip on that one. Keep things on point if you could. I would appreciate it. Thank you. Let us see. The cheese factor, what is going on? Glad to see you here. Tina B says, I don't want Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers rebooted, but I'm sure it'll happen because they're out of ideas and they won't get either one. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why look to what Disney's doing. You know, what is Disney's bottom line right now? What they are doing is they are rebooting every single classic animated film they've ever done, and they are creating a live action, or at the very least a so-called live action. For instance, what they did with The Lion King. It was just another animated edition of The Lion King, only they were using hyper-realistic animation, and it made you ask the question, if you're going to go out of your way to try and make these lions and creatures look like the real thing, and you're still going to have them talk and sing, why make it? If you're just going to make an animated film, and the version that you're going to give us is going to be completely unrealistic and just not good, why bother? Why even bother at this point? Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Thank you all again for joining me today. 10 people says, watching over on Odyssey, light up that fire button. Only 5 fires have been lit over there. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Megazord Jeremy says, could you get a copy of BlacKkKlansman and do a version where you cut off the last minutes? You could. And again, you could also just stop watching at a certain point as well. But it doesn't take away the fact that it's a part of the movie. It is a permanent part of the movie. And also it's an important part of the movie because it adds context to everything that happens in that film. And it helps you understand what Spike Lee was trying to do in that movie. So you can do it because you can get any movie and you can cut it however you want. There's even these awesome software programs that exist now, and I'm going to have to do that actually because I just got the Human Condition. So right now there is the Criterion sale going on Barnes & Noble's the one that's most known for it, but you can get a lot of these deals as well on Amazon and other places. So I was able to pick up the Human Condition, which is like 3 3-hour movies, but there's also, it's like broken up into 6 movies as well. And so because of that, it's 574 minutes in total. But I tried putting those on my Plex server, and Plex was just like, what do you mean part 3, 4, 5, 6? And only a couple things showed up. And so what I have to do is I'm going to have to transfer them back to my computer. And then there's this program that I can run that actually combines the files to be one singular file, so one singular movie, and doesn't lead to loss of quality, to my knowledge. So I'm going to have to do that to try and do it. But this is an example, right, of a film where I can't wait to watch it. Can't wait to watch it. Very, very excited. I was going to say something else, but then I lost my train of thought. There we go. Now we got 9 fires lit over on Odyssey. Thank you very much. Trent Johnson says, I got you, Odin. We'll give you another fire. Thank you, man. Robot Vulcan says, I have but 1 fire to give. Well, thank you, Robot Vulcan. I very much appreciate it. Oh, man. All right, let's head back over to YouTube. Let us see. David Stout, no problem at all explaining. No problem at all. Let's see. Brightburn here tagged and says, I heard people talk about License to Kill and say, this is terrible. I can't bring my 6 and 7-year-olds to Bond anymore. And Dalton said, but it was never meant for 6 and 7-year-olds. Yeah. That's interesting. Also, if that's the movie that makes you start to question about whether you can bring your kids to Bond anymore, I have a lot of questions. There's a lot of other Bond films where literally in the title credits, there is nudity. So please explain to me how you're okay with every Bond that existed prior to Timothy Dalton's License to Kill, and how you justify how those movies are not adult enough somehow, but License to Kill is. It's obviously it's a cultural reason, I would say. You see typically, especially in American audiences, there is a lot less tolerance for things like nudity and cursing in movies, but there's a lot more tolerance for violence. Whereas in Europe, there's a lot more tolerance for nudity and things like that, and a lot less tolerance for things like violence. It's typically how it works out. But yeah, Timothy Dalton, as I've mentioned before, my wife and I, we haven't been watching anymore. We're 2 films into Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, but we've watched every single Bond before then, and most of those, it was my first time ever watching them. And out of all the ones that I've watched, there was one director that really did the best. It was like the last two of the Roger Moore films, and then also, of course, the only 2 Timothy Dalton films are some of my favorites. And Timothy Dalton, because of that, I would argue is my favorite Bond for that very reason, because they were just more real. They were more raw, and they were more fun because of that. David Stout says, what do you okay, kind of a random thing, David Stout, and I know that you mentioned before about context, so not really relevant to what we're talking about right now. It's not woke, though, and it's not because it's satire. It's satire, and it's making fun of things. Jarkai, what's going on, dude? I think I saw you last night in the chat, too. Yeah, Plex is awesome. I love Plex, but as awesome as Plex is, there are some quirks that don't work very well. So, for instance, you have to put things in and title them a very specific way if you want them to, the first time, get the artwork right and get any other information correct. And then also, whenever you have multiple parts of a film, it gets very, you have to, again, put those in a certain way if you want it to play. And that's why, for me, it's like, it'd be easier just to run. There's an app that you can run that allows you actually to like combine different things. It's called MKV Tool Nix GUI, and that's what allows you to combine all of these MKV files together as one. It just makes things so much easier, especially with Plex, than having to get the naming schemes right and making sure they're in the right folder. And again, I know that people who probably are used to doing it, it's not that hard, but for me, I was like, all right, this is a little too much. Rosie12, have a great day at work. Thank you for stopping by today. Hound3000, what's going on? Thank you for joining today. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Slice of Neons has a comment saying those roles are being given too much credit to Brie. Yeah, and as I said, I think that people give Brie too much credit for those roles, and I don't think that they should. I think that it's because of the directors pulling out a good performance. A good director can pull out a good performance from most actors. Good directors can do that. But what tells you the nature of an actor, what tells you the talent of an actor, is when they are put in with a director that is not as hands-on, or if they direct it themselves, or are a producer or an executive producer where they have more control over their character. And so a great example of why Brie Larson is not a talented actress on her own is Unicorn Store, because she directed it. She didn't she write it too, or co-wrote it or something like that? But at the very least, she directed and starred in that movie, which means that she directed herself. And it was terrible, and it was awful, and everyone else in the movie was bad too. So not only is she a terrible actress, she's also a terrible director. But she, as an actress, has given good performances, but it's not because of any raw talent that she has. It's because she worked with directors that were able to help her. Also, someone else made a good point back months ago when I was talking about this, the last time I was talking about Brie Larson, was that they made a pretty good point saying, well, also take into account that where she is now politically may not have been where she was in those earlier roles, because she really didn't really come onto the scene as being this hyper woke individual until really recently, right? It wasn't really until the comments that she made about A Wrinkle in Time that she really got any attention for her politics. Before then, people were just like, oh yeah, she was fine in this, she was fine in that. And now, obviously, a lot of people are like, oh, she's terrible in everything. But I would be interested to see if a lot of the people who say that, if they were being honest, if I were to ask them, oh, what did you think about her in Scott Pilgrim in that supporting role? what did you think about her in this or that? They probably wouldn't be as negative. And again, it's because art, separating art from the artist can be very difficult for a lot of people. And I understand that, right? It can be hard for me to do that as well. But I think that actually causes a lot more of the hatred than anything else. Yeah, Tina, right there with you. I love Timothy Dalton's Bond. I think it's fantastic. Abu Nas, dude, you have a great day. You have a great day, man. Hope you have a good one. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the Dark Council, for sure. Thank you for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. Saint Ravage, what's going on, dude? Thank you for being here in the chat. Yeah, a lot of Timothy Dalton love. Yeah, he only appeared twice. He only did 2 movies. Wish he had done more. Snortapubus Cuber, what is going on, dude? Thank you very much for being here. Amit Ahuya, good morning. Good morning to you. Phil Arconis mentioned Free Fire. I actually was not a fan of Free Fire. Free Fire was not as fun as it should have been. That film should have been a lot of fun, and it ended up being much more of a drag. Andrew Hoyle says, I'm sure Brie Larson would make a good coffee table. Oh, that's mean. Renee, I don't know if she was a child actress. I don't know if it was a child actress. She had a music career, though. She came from from what I can remember, I think she came from pretty rich parents or a rich family situation where it's clear she was probably spoiled. There are videos that are still on YouTube of her doing like one of those AOL sessions. Remember back in the day, the AOL sessions that bands would do? Yeah, she has them. She has like 3 or 4 songs that she did with AOL sessions. Yeah, she was a failed pop star, basically. She was a pop star that never really went anywhere. And then eventually she went into acting and, yeah, was given everything that she could have ever wanted. The Brie factor. Yes. It's a very cheesy factor. David Stout. Question about editing software. So I, for most of my time on YouTube, have used a program called DaVinci Resolve. And actually, I recently got a key for the premium version of it. The issue that I've had with it, though, is that it is kind of quirky with certain systems. Like if I open it and run it on my laptop, it actually runs really well and really smoothly. When I open it on my desktop, it takes forever to open, forever to load, and there's just random issues that pop up. And I think it has to do with like USB devices, like when things are plugged into USB ports, that there's issues that can pop up with it. So recently I've been using a program called Shotcut, because there is a free version of DaVinci Resolve. It's very much filled with all the stuff you could ever possibly want and need. And it's a very powerful tool. But there's Shotcut. Shotcut is an open source, so totally free editing software. And it's also very powerful. It uses graphics cards too, which is something I was wanting to have access to, because when I was starting to record videos in 60 frames per second, I was having some bottlenecking issues with my DaVinci Resolve program. Have not had those issues with Shotcut, because Shotcut also will utilize the GPU, of which any other program you use, you have to pay something to get GPU utilization in most cases. So Shotcut is a very good editing software, I would say. See, JM Cruz tagged and says, Brie Larson's only good movie is in Kong Skull Island. What? Kong Skull Island's garbage, dude. What? It says, I think she's a classic example of the modern day liberal. Get woke, go broke is how you describe her career at this point. Disappointing. That is not a good movie. No. JM Cruz, you need to watch films like Room. I would say Short Term 12 is probably my favorite performance of hers. Her supporting performance in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. She was also, I believe, a supporting character in Don John, which was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's directorial debut. Not the best movie in the world, not a terrible directorial debut. It's really the story that I have an issue with, because it's moral problems and issues that pop up with it. But she plays, I think, his sister in the film. And in that movie, she does not really talk at all. So it's actually one of those quiet, silent, but very insightful. Oh, then also too, I think that her performance in 21 Jump Street is also fun too. Kong Skull Island is not the movie you would ever name for anyone's best, because it's just not a good movie. That does not, no. Bad JM Cruise. Bad JM Cruise. All right, let's hop back over to Odyssey. Let's see. Who would win in a fight between James Bond and Batman, says Megazord Jeremy. Batman. Absolutely Batman. Batman's got all of the cool... Obviously, they both have their own person they go to for cool tools and stuff, but Batman, I think Batman's smarter. James Bond is a very suave individual. I don't think his intelligence is nearly as high as Batman's, though. Robot Vulcan says, Unicorn Store made me wonder what Brie Larson has on Sam Jackson. It's a great point. Yeah. Why did Sam Jackson make that movie? Must have something. Must have something. Megazord Jeremy says, did you ever see the movie Willow? So I did a movie watch of that film, and I need to go back and rewatch it because when I did that movie watch, there were so many problems with the stream. I was so distracted, and Tina will remember this. I was so distracted, I couldn't focus on the movie. So I need to rewatch it because I don't really have a lot of opinions about it for that very reason. What? Okay. Megazord Jeremy, dude, again, please. Because you put very long comments, and I have to read them beforehand because they're usually just a little off the wall for me, Megazord Jeremy. And again, I feel like 90% of the comments you make are trying to be jokes and funny. And it's like, if that's what you're going to do, make them short and sweet. But, Megazord Jeremy, dude, please chill. Please chill. Do not abuse the @ symbol on any platform. Gosh. All right. JKD Buck 76, who's a member over on YouTube, says, Doctor Who is dead, replaced by Dr. Hwoke. Yeah, I would say the only correction to that, JKD Buck 76, is it's Dr. Hwoke and not Dr. Hwoke or Dr. Woke. Even just Dr. Woke. It's not that. It's Dr. Hwoke. Got to get it correct. All right. Hopefully, everyone is still doing swimmingly and doing well. Please make sure, again, that y'all smash that like button. We got 50 people still watching on YouTube. Holy cow. 50 people. What's going on, man? Thank y'all for being here. Please smash that like button. It really does mean a lot. And yeah, I guess going back one more time to talking a little bit about, obviously in the title of this video, again, rest in peace to Richard Donner. Let me see if I can get this transition to work. Oh, look at that. That's so beautiful. It's so great. Stunning and brave right there. Yeah. So again, as I've mentioned last night and mentioned previously, that for me, Richard Donner as a filmmaker is not my favorite. There are films that I like. There's films that I don't like. But even though I'm not the biggest fan of a film like Superman, I've obviously never seen Superman 2, but I'm much more willing to watch it, especially since he has passed on. I, again, go back to films like The Goonies, all-time classic, very important in my childhood. And then I also go back to films like the Lethal Weapon franchise, too. You know, and I think that those are really great examples of when he was on his A game, the kind of content that he could provide, the kind of films that he could make, the kind of stories that he could tell. And despite any of my thoughts or opinions about any of the other films that he's made that I've not been a big fan of or not really seen as being as good as maybe others have seen it, I have to always still remember, right? I have to always still remember the effect that his film, especially The Goonies, had on me and had on my family as we were growing up. And also, interesting fact that I think I had thought Chris Columbus was the director of The Goonies. But yeah, interestingly enough, Chris Columbus, who is a very also well-known director for doing a lot of stories like that, did the screenplay. Story by Steven Spielberg. I mean, that film truly has just so many great things. But yeah, filmography for The Goonies, it's amazing. That's one of the first stories that he did back in 1985. It's the first films he did. He actually did Gremlins. He wrote Gremlins? What? That was his second movie credit, was Gremlins. He then did The Goonies. He then did Adventures in Babysitting as the director. That was a fun film. And then, of course, he's known for films like Home Alone, Home Alone 2, Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, man, Mrs. Doubtfire, so good. 9 Months, underrated comedy, so good. He also was a producer on Jingle All the Way. Nice. And then the Harry Potter films are probably the things he's most known for recently. And then he also did the abomination known as Pixels from 2015. But yeah, going back to it, I think that the fact that he did and was involved in, I had even no idea that he was involved in the Twilight Zone. But yeah, doing 6 episodes of the Twilight Zone. And now these are episodes that I have the entire series. And so they're episodes that I want to be able to find and go back to and watch. He did the, third to last episode of the entire Twilight Zone series. So yeah, absolutely. Shout out, rest in peace to Richard Donner. All right, let's go ahead and see some last minute comments before we wrap things up today. Let's see what's going on over here. All right, cool. Things have calmed down, which is a good thing. All right. See, David Stout tagged and says, Would Captain Marvel to me Brie Larson's most condescending acting role other than Unicorn? That doesn't make sense. I think Captain Marvel is absolutely, if the point was to say it's the most condescending role, or the portrayal of the character is condescending to others, then yeah, I would say that probably is Captain Marvel, because there was just so much other stuff going on with that. Andrew Hoyle, who's a member, says, Splendid, Miss Moneypenny. Yes. Yes, Miss Moneypenny. Yes. JKD76. I did not like The Goonies. It was too loud, disjointed, and bombastic, and I was a kid when it premiered. It was aimed at me, didn't like it at all. That makes me sad. It's interesting how that movie, I think, resonated a lot more with kids from the 90s than it did with kids from the 80s. That's I don't know. It seems to be an interesting point, I guess. I don't know why you don't like it, though. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And there's so many great moments. You got the Truffle Shuffle. You got One-Eyed Willie. The guy's name is One-Eyed Willie. How do you not have fun with that? Also, one of the favorite scenes that was cut from the TV version. I think that's the other reason why my family loved it so much. We had this cassette version of it. We had recorded it on cassette tape. And it was the TV version. So it was the TV edit. And when we finally got like an official version of the movie, we realized, there were scenes that were like, we never knew that this scene existed. And we didn't realize that until we were a little older too. So it was fun. We were watching it one day, and all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, this wasn't in the version that we watched. And there's this great scene that gets cut because obviously he curses, but where Chunk is in the arcade and he's up against the glass. Wow, a police chase. And then all of a sudden the pizza and he's like, and then says the S word. It's just moments like that are just so funny and just so well done. Let's see. M-Tac Shark, who is a member on the channel, says, Donner also directed some great television in the 60s. If you're a Perry Mason fan, many other noted series, it's cool to see his name pop up. Yeah, we were talking about that. We were breaking down his career, and something that I had not noticed until last night was how many shows that he was involved in, and not just movies. I disagree, Phil. I don't think Scrooge is that good. It just wasn't very funny. It would not be what I would call a quintessential Christmas movie. For me, at least. At least for me. Robot Vulcan says, I have never heard Goonies described as bombastic. Yeah, neither have I. I don't really get or understand that as a reference, personally. JKD76, agreed. Absolutely. Die Hard is a better Christmas movie than Scrooged. Yes. I absolutely agree with that. And that is also a great point. Yeah, we're going to talk about best Christmas movies. Home Alone's in that running. I would not have Scrooged in that running at all. I've seen it once, and I have no real desire to watch it again. Just my take. Take it or leave it. But if I'm going to say what the best Christmas movie of all time is, It's a Wonderful Life. There's no doubt. There's no question. It's a Wonderful Life is the greatest Christmas movie of all time. And I know it's been overplayed, but I love films like A Christmas Story. I think it's overplayed and it's kind of been ruined because of that reason. It's still a fun movie. better Christmas movie than Scrooge. Just being honest. Just being honest. David Stat says he was 6 when he saw the Goonies. Nice. And again, sorry for them fighting words, as someone said over on the YouTube chat. All right. Well, anyway, that is going to be it for me today, everybody. So thank y'all again for your love. Oh, St. Ravage had said Christmas Vacations. It's a pretty good Christmas movie. It's not the best. Now everyone's coming in. Yeah, Jaggedy Buck says Lethal Weapon's a Christmas movie. I guess I've only seen it once, so I guess you could say that from what I can remember. Alien Ogre. Absolutely, it is a Christmas movie. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. That is a fact. My favorite Scrooge is Albert Finney's. Nice. Snorapoopa says, good night, or take care, every human out there. Oh, Tina's going to put in on this one, too. She says, best Christmas movie, Scrooge with Reginald Owen, MGM flick from the 30s. Okay, yeah. I figured that you would go in that direction for sure. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. It's been a long time since I've seen Gremlins too. I definitely would disagree with you there, Alien. 78, is that the first one? I don't think the first Superman's good. That ending is not a well-written ending. But we already talked about that, so we're at the end. Thank you all again so much for being here today. I really do appreciate it. Y'all are freaking awesome, amazing people. It really does mean a lot that y'all showed up today. Please make sure y'all smash that like button and light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. And something that I forgot to do last night, but I want to make sure I don't forget to do today, is to shout out my YouTube members who are at the Army of Asgard level and above, because it is indeed one of the perks that y'all get. And so I want to make sure that y'all get the love that y'all deserve. And let me just... So we're doing it live. Current level. Army of Asgard, Keeper of the Bifrost level. So a shout out to all of my members at the Army of Asgard and Keeper of the Bifrost level on YouTube. George Moilo, who joined last night. Thank you, good sir. Mondo Spieler. Grimm's Math, Riff Magos, Wicked Plumber, Sean McD, Gomer Kyle 79, Your Muslim Uncle, Kara Tharp, Eric Jewett, Rich the Savior, Damon Walking 55, M Tack Shark, Forever Sci-Fi, Rosie G12, Andrew Hoyle, Eric K, Orange at Reviews, Adam Avery, Jay Stowe, and Aiden Vickery. You guys are awesome. And also, since I have not updated the video yet, a shout out to Mondo Spieler for becoming my newest Patreon member, and a huge shout out to Goblin Squatch, who is my first supporter over on Locals. So if you want to support the channel, there are a wide variety of ways that you can do so. I have a Patreon, I have a Subscribe Star, and now I do have a Locals. The Locals is only the Keeper of the Bifrost level. And if you want to find out more about what's included in the Keeper of the Bifrost level, you can check out my Locals. There is a public comment that has more information about what you get with that subscribership over there on Locals. It's very similar to what you would find over on any of the other platforms like Patreon or Subscribestar. So if you wish to support the channel in any ways like that, obviously those are options for you. But just being here, spending time with me, dropping the like button does mean a lot. And again, as I always say, time is much more precious than money. And so I appreciate you all very much for spending time with me today. Shout out to everyone on Odyssey, GMA76. You have a good day. Robot Vulcan, Megazord Jeremy. And again, Megazord Jeremy, I figured that you may have left or just are being a little bit quiet, but just calm down a little bit over there, man, because it does just get a little bit too much when I see these long paragraph comments that you can put over there and they're just rambling random thoughts trying to be funny. It's just a little too much for me. Again, I love you, man. And I really do appreciate you always being in the chat on Odyssey and showing support. But yeah, it just wanted to point it out. But you're always welcome. Always welcome. But anyway, that is going to be it for me today. David Stout, you have a good one. Man, M-Tac Shark, you have a good one. JM Cruz, thanks for being here today as well. Jingle All the Way is a great Christmas movie. There's no doubt about that. Phil, thank you for being here. Hound 3000, thanks for being in the Cheese Factor. Thank you for being here as well. And a shout out to Tina B. Tina B, thank you very much for modding this morning as you are still very tired with your coffee. She said, I need yogurt now and more coffee. Yes. JKD Buck, thank you also for being here. You guys are all amazing, beautiful people. Thank you all so very much for your love and support tonight, wherever time it is in your neck of the woods. And Trent Johnson, Rookie Critic, Abu Nas, thank y'all very much for y'all's donations today. Appreciate it. I was awake, says Tina. Well, I appreciate it. Tomorrow, OMB Report. Tomorrow on the OMB Report YouTube and Odyssey channel, we will have a talk about this vaccine nonsense and about people going door to door, apparently, to those people that have not been vaccinated. A lot of questions about that. But again, we'll talk about that on the OMB Report tomorrow. You guys are great. Hopefully I'll have time today also to put these up as podcast episodes, as I've fallen behind a little bit. But obviously it depends on how baby Thor's first day of daycare goes. Thank y'all very much. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my July Patreon and Subscribestar members. Andrew Hoyle, Biffer de Hobbit, Brian P., Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina B, and Tina Bojan. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on Patreon, and also to my Subscribestar members, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. Thank you all very much for being here today. And if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video on the channel, please make sure to check out the links in the description of ways that you can support me over on Patreon and Subscribestar as well. It gives you access to things like giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, and digital codes. Also, access to a podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where we have a lot of fun. We also answer Q&A questions as well. And also you might get access to the Chosen of Valhalla level, which gives you access to a once-a-month podcast exclusively where I bring on you to the main channel with everyone else who is at the level, and we all just talk about movies, pop culture, and tons of fun stuff like that. And also, of course, Tina, who is the Empress of the Universe, is going to give us tons of reviews of movies and also maybe a couple of awesome rants here and there as well. So if that sounds fun to you, make sure you go ahead and check out those links. Again, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.